I'm talking about something a little bit different today in terms of arrogance, okay? So don't get shocked or worried what the heck's going to happen in the next 20 minutes. Antidotes to arrogance. You know, it's interesting that the human being is a very paradoxical creature, aren't we? On the one hand, we realize how infinitesimal we are in the universe. We're nothing compared to the vastness of things. And yet at the same time, we have quite a high regard for ourselves in many ways, that we feel we're quite important. And so there's a dichotomy there between being nothing and yet feeling kind of, I'm okay, you don't have to be Muhammad Ali to say, I am the greatest. Because sometimes we wake up and feel that, I'm the greatest. All these people, when they're as advanced as I am, they'll get to my stage, because I found unity now, and now it's all fallen into place for me. So there's a little bit of arrogance there. And I looked up arrogance in the dictionary. You know what I'm talking about, don't you? Yeah. We're hitting home already. That's good. According to the dictionary, arrogance is characterized by a sense of being superior, overbearing, and presumptuous. Ever been there, any of those things? I'm going to own up to it right now, Oh, no, yeah. Sure. I was thinking, what about the positive side of this? Maybe the positive side is that it's inbuilt in us to be positive-minded, to have a high regard for ourselves. Why? Because we want to survive, right? And if you feel terrible about yourself, your chances of survival are lesser. So if you feel very capable, maybe that gets you through. I just had cataract surgery, the second one. Anybody had those things? And so I'm working with my second eye. And as soon as I was fine until I left the house this morning. And then it started weeping a little bit. And, it's weird to drive into the sun with one eye and all that. So I was having a little pity party, pitiful me. But then, my unity thing kicked in, and I said, I can do this. I'm the greatest. Everything's fine. Well, it fit that well. That sort of attitude fit well in that regard, because it got me out of my sense of, oh, gosh, am I going to survive? Am I going to get all the way here from Fort Worth? All through the Bible and other great books, there's stories about arrogance. We come across it all the time. One of the famous ones, of course, is the Tower of Babel. We all know that one, right? Where the Babylonians tried to build a tower where? Up to the sky, up to heaven. They thought they could reach heaven through their own abilities. And of course, God confounded them because they were all working together with one language, and he gave them hundreds of languages. This is the story of how languages were formed according to the Bible. And so nobody could understand each other. They were confused, and all the work stopped. But it's the idea that we can do this. I can through my own will, I can get to the promised land. I can do everything I need to do. I think I need to do. There's hubris if we're too bought into that, because, as somebody said earlier, and I thought it was wonderful, let God's will be done today, yeah? So important. It's actually mentioned in the Lord's Prayer, isn't it? Not my will, but your will be done. What's interesting is the Lord is not just out there, the Lord is in here. So there's a confusion sometimes between how my will and God's will shows up. And we'll talk a bit more about that later. Chosen people. Obviously, we know the Jews call themselves the chosen people, but many other religions call themselves the chosen people too. I think there's a church down in the valley, in the Rio Grande Valley, that has 90% of all the people that were going to heaven in the world in that one church. Yeah, they're doing really well down there. So, they're the chosen people, aren't they? It's unfortunate when we, place ourselves above others in that regard. The priestly class, this has always been a problem throughout history. The Buddha railed against it. That's how Buddhism was formed, because he felt like the priestly caste had too much control over everybody's salvation, and that nobody could get there except through the priests, through reciting the correct statements and mantras. And so Buddha said, no, it's for everyone. Martin Luther, the same thing, came along and said, these people are getting too arrogant. They're giving indulgences to people, allowing people to get into heaven as long as they do the right thing. He said, no, every person, a priest, every person can do this. I think unity was formed in the same way, right? Because it's to get away from the idea of somebody else telling us what to do. So again, that's the positive side of arrogance. It's saying, I deserve this. I deserve to claim this good. But it can go so badly wrong if we're not careful. By the way, the Pharisees, who Jesus seemed to rail against in the New Testament, had how many rules? Does anybody know how many rules they had? Absolutely. I think it was 647, but you're almost there. You know, that's incredible, isn't it? Imagine if you had 647 rules to abide by every day, except they were so perfect they did. That's why they showed off. I'm a Pharisee, I know everything. Now, unfortunately, Pharisaic attitudes can be alive and well, right? I've studied, I know all the rules now, I know how to do it. And so I became a little bit arrogant in that regard. Jesus was at pains to tell people it's not about all following all the rules correctly, right? It's about what? Very simple. Loving each other. Very simple. That's one of the antidotes to, we haven't got that yet. We've got 10 antidotes to arrogance. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. There's only one way. I go down the highway and I see signs that says there's only one way to God, Jesus. But if you're in India, there's some people who would write, there's only one way to God, Krishna. Right? So it depends on where you live in this planet. Who's right then? Is it Jesus or Krishna? It could be both, couldn't it? So that's the end of that statement. There's only one way. Arrogance that says there's only one way to do something is a dead end, right? Because however many billion people there are on the planet, there are that many ways to enter into the kingdom. My way is better than yours. That's a terrible one, isn't it? Because unfortunately it leads to division, and we are so divided in our world right now by that attitude. My way is better than yours. Instead of embrace, we see difference. And it's going to destroy us if we don't shift that paradigm. So it's hugely important that folks like us that espouse love as a paramount quality prevail, right? And do everything we can to make that happen in our lives and in the world's life. Because that has to begin with you, and then you take it from there. So, teachers and prophets have come along to remind us that arrogance is not always the best way. And think about Job. Job spent 42 chapters being righteous and arrogant. You know, God sent him all these terrible things, right? And he said, why me, Lord? I don't deserve it. I've done everything right. And that was a true block for him because he couldn't get past that idea of being right. And eventually he realized, okay, whether I'm right or not, this isn't helping. So then he let go. He released. He surrendered. It says in the Bible, he repented in dust and ashes. We may say that sounds very Old Testamental. I don't want to go there. But what we know about repenting is, I repent, I rethink all the value I was giving to the dust and ashes of my life, to the conditions of my life, and instead I realized I'm spirit, because you are spirit in me. And the minute he did that, then he was healed, right? He gave up his attachment in God telling him, we all right? Okay. We give up our attachment in thinking that it has to be a certain way. Gonna be all right? Okay. Okay, good. What did Jesus say, apart from love everybody? He said, I of myself can do nothing. It is the Father within me that does the work, right? That's very salutary. That's a very important part of understanding truth. I of myself can do nothing. I of myself as a separate being. But when I recognize I am part of this whole, this energy that's universal, then I can do everything. But it's important to empty ourselves before we can be filled, right? Because if your cup is already full, there was a great teacher in Japan, and an American went to that teacher and said, "Master, please teach me everything I need to know to be enlightened." So the master said, "Oh, great. Let's sit down and have a cup of tea together." So he brewed some tea, and then he began to pour the tea into the American's cup. And he kept pouring and pouring and pouring until the cup was full. You know this story, right? It poured out onto the saucer, it poured out onto the floor. And the American was like, this guy's nuts. Maybe he's not going to help me get to enlightenment. And the master then stopped and said, "Listen, just as I can't fill your mind that's already full, so I cannot fill this cup once it's full and to the brim. It has to be emptied before it can receive." And self-emptying, I of myself can do nothing, but the spirit that flows within me does it. That's the antidote, see? We're swapping a small little thing for an infinite thing. We're becoming part with the one. What else we got? The prophets always said, stop sacrificing and start loving. I prefer steadfast love over endless sacrifices. Right? Let that one drop in there. Lao Tzu, the founder of Taoism, I think he was 80 years old, 80 years young, and he said, "I've had enough of being a businessman and helping the government in China. I want to leave." So he supposedly rode on an ox across the border, and he was riding backwards on an ox because he was a little bit like that. And whatever, do what you want. He was out of the box. I'm leaving. So he was crossing the border, and the border guard recognized him and said, "Oh, please, you must write down the knowledge you've known, because we can't miss all this wisdom that you've imparted over the years, and it'll all go if we don't receive it." So he said, "No, I'm not going to. Please." So he spent one weekend writing the Tao Te Ching. And then he handed it to the border guard and said, "That's it." And he wandered off into the desert, never to be seen again. Thank goodness the border guard asked him to write it down, right? But he was so sick of the world that he just wanted to give up. But then he put all his wisdom into that beautiful text of, 5,000 pictograms. It's only short, tiny, short little book, and yet it contains everything. Yeah? He self-emptied himself of his arrogance that said, "Screw it, I don't want to do anything. Okay, I will." That opening. We don't always listen, though. We're not always paying attention like Lao Tzu or Jesus. And we see examples of it around us wherever we go. We're living in the Bible Belt. We have televangelists that want just one more plane. You know what I'm saying? Just give me one more plane. Why do you need 3 planes? I just do. The Lord, Jesus told me I need one more plane. Or these toxic gurus that sleep with their disciples, that kind of craziness. But wait, shock horror, hold the presses, arrogance, as we said earlier, is alive and well, in unity and new thought. Yes? Can I have an amen? Amen. All right, we put ourselves in the hole. Now, are we going to get out of it? We've admitted we're arrogant. And doesn't it feel good? So often we're spending all this time saying how wonderful we are and how great and everything is and all this positive stuff. Sometimes it's great to say, "Yeah, I'm arrogant," because it's just being honest. And I'm not saying you should go around saying I'm arrogant all the time. Please don't get me wrong. What I'm saying is be honest. When something comes up that's less than beautiful, instead of sweeping it under the carpet and saying, "Oh no, I'm a unity person, everything's positive, everything's wonderful." No, sometimes it feels good to acknowledge, "Dang, this sucks right now." Know what I'm saying? I'm not feeling it right now. And that honesty is as big an opening as trying to sugarcoat it. In fact, it's a bigger opening than trying to make everything good. So honesty here is very, very important. How can we get trapped into arrogance, though? I think one of the things, and I've got 5 things here. One is we spiritualize our egos, right? We think we're very spiritual, but instead all we've done is spiritualize our humanness. And so the ego loves to take on things, and it takes on spirituality. And that's where we get to say, I'm so advanced one day when you're as advanced as I am, you'll get it, right? That's just spiritualized ego, because that's saying it's them and us. That's not unity, is it? When you spiritualize your ego and you set yourself up as a guru, right, of one kind or another. We talk a lot about being spiritual beings, what? Having a human experience, and yet so often we bypass being human. We don't want to be human anymore. I got to get to spirit as soon as I can. Well, you've short-circuited something, you know? You've bypassed just being you, because you were a combination of both, right? And that's fine. That's perfectly okay. So it's okay to have a human experience as well. We don't have to rush to be spiritual. In fact, once you realize who you are as a beautiful human being, then you realize spirit was here all along, right? It's not in me having extraordinary experiences. It's me being present to the simplest things, whatever that might be. And that's the beauty of it. Getting very, very simple. All the true gurus I've ever known have been very, very simple people, because they've just been present to what is at any given time. Charles Fillmore invited us to activate God. And I love that. And that's part of Unity's teaching, to activate God. Rather than have a God up there that you could never get in touch with, activate God within your being, right? But the danger with that is you end up trying to control God. So instead of activating, we now control. So then we have what I call God in your pocket, right? And you take him out and stroke him. Oh, he's cute, you know, and I can use God. Well, the devil done take my mic away. I was being too arrogant. I was thinking I was saying something sensible. Where was I? I had a good point there, I thought. Yeah, God in your pocket, right? This idea that we got it all now, and I understand all the principles and everything's flowing for me. That's dangerous, because again, I of myself can do nothing. It is the spirit within me that does the things, that does the work that is mine to do. I think that's crucially important. Often we are blindly unaware of our arrogance, yes, because we just don't see it. You know, when you're driving down the street, there's a certain time when the car's right behind you or at the side of you, and you can't see it. It's called the blind spot. And now a lot of new cars have got these lights that come on, right, when you're in the blind spot, to show you that you can't see it, but it's there. We need one of those lights, see? We need one of those lights that comes on when we're starting to get a little bit arrogant and and we're starting to lay a trip on somebody. Bing! Whoa, wait a minute, I'm in my blind spot again. And so I offer 10 ways we can overcome arrogance. 10 antidotes. And again, not all of these are going to work for you, but maybe there's one today that you think you could apply that would be helpful, right? So, ways we can overcome arrogance. I mentioned some of them already. First one is embrace your humanity, right? Warts and all. Just embrace who you are. Don't pretend that you're something you're not. Because that's freeing, enormously freeing. Because when you come with as somebody said earlier, a story, then most people can suss out your story after a while, right? Because they know it's not you. Because it's not real. It's something you've self-created and lived with, and that's your story. But to let it go and just be me, warts and all, as I like to say, then it's very, very freeing, and it's very nice for other people when they see the real you, yeah? Instead of somebody that's pretending. That's number one. Embrace your humanity. Number two, and I think we're all good at this, be willing to laugh at yourself. Are you okay with that one? See, we all have a fantastic ability to laugh at other people. But we don't have such a good ability to laugh at ourselves sometimes. I know I'm hitting home when it gets real quiet and nobody's playing along with me anymore. Number three, dare to live Jesus' statement, I of myself can do nothing. And don't see that as a negation of the wonderful you that you are, right? That we teach in Unity. See it more as a self-emptying of what limits you've placed on yourself so that greater good can flow, right? You're giving up your pallet in the basement in order that you can sleep in the king-size bed in the beautiful room upstairs. And some of us are papering our beautiful basement with pretty pictures, and we're putting an extra soft comforter on our pallet and everything, and thinking, man, I'm living the life, right? But that's false modesty. It's false sense of good. Sometimes we have to let go of the basement that we're in and come up and receive the true good. And you can't do that unless you can let go of all the things you thought you were supposed to have, right? Self-emptying. Jesus let everything go so he could be fully present to those around him, and that full presence of those around him was so palpable and powerful that it continues to this day, right? The energy of the Christ presence that was in Jesus is still resonating for us today. In fact, he said, I will be with you always, even till the end of the age, because his consciousness is there, that consciousness of emptying the small so that the large can shine forth. We see it in the saints, too, those true saints that have given everything up. How am I doing? Am I going on too much? Too bad, we're only on number 3. Number 4, unleash. And I think this is powerful. Unleash awe, wonder, and humility on a daily basis, right? Find something you can go, whoa, about. Because if you've been there and got the T-shirt, you're no longer living, right? You've done it all. Your memory's almost full, as they say, you know. We want to keep our memory open. We want to keep our ability expanding all the time, right? So we can receive more. And the best way to do that is to be in awe of things, in wonder. Go out into Mother Nature and see the amazing beauty. Go on your cyberspace and find beautiful things to look at, because there's a bunch of good stuff as well as all the craziness. You know, wonderful things about Mother Earth and about the planet and about what people are doing to make a difference in our world. It's inspiring. Wow. I want to stay childlike, yes? And children have awe and wonder. Wow. Didn't realize. Stay open and receptive. 5. Oh, by the way, let's go to 6 next. I am nothing and everything, say the saints. And again, I'm repeating this a lot because it's important. It's that self-emptying again. If you recognize that essentially you're not who you think you are, you're not your body, you're not your mind, you're not your story, you're not anything. You are empty spirit expressing. You are emptiness dancing. You are that spaciousness dancing. Then you begin to find joy in your life in a true sense. Wow, this is cool. I'm emptiness dancing. I'm limitlessness dancing. Right? I am spacious. I am glorious. Not me, but the spirit that shines and moves and dances in and through me. Practice just like me. Have you done this one before? I might have mentioned it before because I like it. It's when something happens, you just tack on just like me. So you're going down the street, what a freaking idiot. Just like me. Just like me. It totally defangs it. You know, if you're seeing that car, that, you know, they're out there. Look at, Yeah, just like me. Not that you're going to drive like that, but you've done stupid things as well. So just own it and don't get high and mighty and arrogant about it. Just like me. Or if you see a beautiful person and you think, God, I'm so grateful for that person in my life. They are wonderful. Just like me. So own that too. Own that beauty that you're perceiving, right? Because we create our own reality. And if we get off having to be stuck in separation, then just like me, it's wonderful to do that. It brings us home to the honesty again, the honesty of who we are as both pitiful people and also wonderful people. 7, I could be wrong. That's the blind spot again, and I want somebody to invent this. Can somebody please invent this light that comes on when we have a blind spot? We need that. I think that could be the biggest seller in New Thought and Unity ever. Yeah, the light that pops on when you've got a blind spot and you're not seeing everything clear, that tells you I could be wrong here. And I don't want to be wrong because otherwise I could be in an accident, right? If I rely on my own total knowledge of everything, I could be wrong, and that could lead me into dangerous places. 8, ask yourself, is this for the benefit of all concerned? That shuts me up most of the time, that one. Is this for the benefit of all concerned, right? Because if it's not, don't do it. Don't think it. Is this going to be helpful for as many people as possible? Otherwise, don't act on it. Move on. Excuse me. Number 9, I don't have to be right because I'm already home free. See, we are already beautiful children of God, aren't we? We don't need to be arrogant. We don't need to be special. We don't need to think that somebody's less than us, because in truth, we are spirit. Spirit doesn't think those things. Only our spiritualized ego thinks those things. So once we are home free and recognize I'm a beautiful child of God and so are you, then that's it. We relax. And that's number 10. For God's sake, relax. Have fun. Enjoy. So I hope you've enjoyed something we've shared today. Again, it's been a very great blessing to be with you all. Thank you so much.